Hello everyone, welcome. Crash here. This is RTA Motorsports. And first, I just want to say thank you so much for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're a little over 1,000 now. And so we're going to get to this video here, and that is, let's see if Crossfire for us sim racers actually even makes a difference or can even help us, especially at the wake of these new graphics cards being announced.
Welcome to RTA Motorsports.
So these new graphics cards that have been announced have made many people, including me, kind of question their own computers and wanting to know what's going to be the next build. Do I need another build? Because a lot of these sims, a lot of the updates that are coming out are making it harder and harder for some of our computers to even run the tracks, run the cars, especially with a lot of cars on the track at the same time. Good example, you have a race room, you have the Nordschleife, and you have 100 cars. How many computers can run that with all the graphics completely maxed out? Not many, not many. This has made people like me kind of wonder, what's the next direction for our computers? What should we even do, if anything, and do we even need to do anything? So that's why I thought maybe let's Crossfire. Let's see if that would even make the difference. That's not to say that it was easy. Definitely look at the cards that you're buying. Make sure that the amount of slots that it's going to cover is going to basically be compatible with what you have in your system and how many PCI slots you have available. Each of these graphics cards, again, one's a 290X, one's a 390X, are both 2-slot graphics cards. I think they're 2.2 to be exact. So they kind of go beyond the 2 slots. So again, what cards do I have? My old original card was a Sapphire R9 290X Tri-X 8GB. The core clock on that was 1020. The new card that I have is a Sapphire R9 390X 8GB as well. They're all 8GB in the newer generations. That core clock is 1055. So the core clocks are almost the same. They're pretty darn close. The effective memory clock on the 390X is 6,000 megahertz versus 5,500 megahertz on the 290X. They both have 2,816 stream processors. They both run GDDR5. They're both DX12 compatible. Now this is where the differences come into play with the newer generation cards versus the older generation cards. The 390X has 3 display ports and 1 DVI-D port, whereas the older one has 1 display port 1.2, 2 dual-link DVIs, and an HDMI. They both have 1 single HDMI port. That's the one thing they do share. So I did have to get rid of one of my DVIs and get a display port to HDMI adapter, so that way I could still utilize my 3 screens. One cool thing that I will say though, after I installed this whole thing, is just how quiet my system got. And that is because the fan profile from the 390X has carried over to my 290X. So that is with the 390Xs, and if you have an AMD card, you kind of know what I mean. If you have a 390X below 49C, the fan shut off. It's completely silent. Zero decibels completely. And that's through normal usage. It's, I have enough system case fans that keeps it nice and cool on the inside. The 290X did not have that fan profile at all. So when I installed my 390X, my completely got quiet. And that is amazing how quiet it got. All right, so we're gonna jump right into the benchmarks. You're gonna notice with some of the titles, I kind of gave different examples because there were some specific things that I noticed that Crossfire was doing, or how the game seemed to run based on each. Some have a video kind of showing the beginning and some don't. But I hope I kind of give you enough information. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're just going to go over what we're going to be using for our benchmarking here. So you can see the resolutions at 6048 by 1080 over 3 screens. Kind of a unique problem slash gift that most of us sim racers have, is most of us sim racers use triple screens. So you're either using a resolution like 6760 by 1080 or 6048 by 1080 or whatever you're using for your bezel correction. I'm using bezel correction, so that's why I'm at 6048 by 1080. But yeah, you know, most of us sim racers use triple screen, so let's see how this works for us. And that's how we're going to try to do all of our benchmarking if it gives me the option to. So you can see we have triple screen rendering mode here. Full screen, you have to use full screen to utilize your Crossfire, or also automatically divert just to a single card. And we have most of the options turned all the way up. You can see ultra, 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 100%. Heat shimmering that up as well. And then reflections and high quality mirror reflections, we have that all the way up as well. So pretty much everything maxed out. So let's see how we do. And this is going to be basically how we're going to run all of our benchmarks with most settings all the way up, and this resolution if it gives me the option to. So here we go. So we're going to do this a little bit differently with Race Room because Race Room doesn't have a benchmarking tool, but I wanted to go into the video settings and just show you all what I have done to make this work. I'm going to make this full screen. I'm going to apply that. So we're going to go down to custom settings, and in custom settings I had to adjust some things to make it work right. So what I had to do, you see everything here is high, 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 high. Shadow split I had to turn off. Multi-sampling is all the way up. FXAA, I turned that off. Bloom is off, and motion blur is off. But shadow split I had to turn off. Bloom and motion blur I had to turn off, and light shaft I had to turn off. Or else you get this very annoying flicker on the screen, as well as shader quality. If I put this on high, it could run it frames per second wise, but for some reason I was noticing some of the shading on the track itself would flip-flop here and there. Another thing is the menu flickers like crazy, so be warned, if you do have epilepsy or anything like that, try not to watch this part of the video. Go ahead about like 3 minutes or so. But the menu flickers like crazy when Crossfire is on. I don't know if it does this with SLI. I don't mind it too much because of the performance gain, but we're going to go into practice. I already have this set up from the non-Crossfire session that I did. You can choose your car. You see how it kind of just flickers on and off. Now it does this in all menus besides your options. When you go into options and you're messing around with video settings or anything like that, it stops doing it. So, you know, these are the most important and most sensitive settings to me, so that's fine. But we already have this all set up. You can see we're on Get Real. We're going to be having 31 opponents out on the track for the practice session. All right, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got some good information about crossfiring and possibly if it's right for you, if that's a direction you should be going. Again, you already own a graphics card. You already have a graphics card that you felt was the most power that you could afford at the time, that you wanted to put in a system, or whatever the reason was that you purchased the graphics card you had. Putting a second one in, does that actually work for you? Well, in the case of mine, yes, it does work for some titles and it doesn't work well for others. You have titles like Race Room and Dirt Rally, which seem to do really well with crossfiring. Race Room was a little bit tricky to get working, but once it got working, it was definitely a very enjoyable experience. The only problem with Race Room that you saw was that you have kind of a menu flicker. The menu just seems to flicker like crazy as you move your mouse around. Sometimes it stabilizes out and other times it doesn't. It can make it very frustrating to use a menu system. But if that's something that you want to deal with and that you're willing to deal with, the frames per second increase that we got were great. Assetto Corsa, on the other hand, didn't scale too well. You had Assetto Corsa beforehand, and afterwards, after crossfiring, maybe 12, 13 frames per second difference, maybe a little bit more or so. But if you were on the track by yourself, the graphics cards seemed to jump straight to 100% utilization and just stay there. It was in perfect harmony. They synced up perfectly, and they were utilized completely without any sort of waves or variations. And that's when we saw the big scaling, the big frames per second jump from a single card usage. But once you start bringing other cards on the track, we noticed that there was a lot of dips. Almost it seemed to be unstable when we started crossfiring. We still had a frames per second jump and leap from using single card to going crossfire, and I didn't notice any screen tearing or any sort of flicker or any sort of artifacting on the screen, but it just didn't seem to be as stable, and we weren't really using the crossfire performance as well as I thought. So some titles, it all depends on what your favorite titles are. For me, right now it's Assetto Corsa, Race Room, Dirt Rally, and iRacing. I'm running those four mainly when I'm on my rig. And for me, I'm really happy with the performance gain. Leave a like and leave a comment down below and subscribe for future videos. Give me your input on what you want to see from this channel and future content. I'm always open to suggestion. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. This is Crash, this is RTA Motorsports, and if you're a sim racer or just a racer in general, have a great day, have fun, and see you all out on the track.